All right, so welcome everyone to this introduction to process mining. My name is Anthony Dayton. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Celonis, and it'll be my pleasure to walk you through this presentation and introduce everyone here to process mining. So just a couple housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded and we will share the recording with you afterwards. There's also a Q&A panel, a question and answer panel, that you should see in the GoToMeeting window. So feel free as we walk through the presentation and that as you have questions, just sort of write them down in that panel, go ahead and submit them. At the end of the presentation, I will walk through those questions and try to answer as many as possible, as many as time allows. And any that we don't get to or that are fairly specific or for whatever reason, things we don't want to go into in detail, we'll follow up on email with you thereafter. So just in terms of agenda, my intention is to walk you through a bit of PowerPoint, introduce our view on process mining, and then also show you a live demonstration of the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud and how we use process mining in our software. So with that, let's jump into it. So I'm sure the sort of primary question on everybody's mind is, well, what is process mining? It's certainly an area which has gotten some attention recently. It's sort of a hot area. And you're sort of wondering, what's it all about? And so there are a lot of really good technical answers to that question. Here's a great sort of definition of process mining from Wikipedia. But ultimately, when you think about process mining as a technology, this is really about adding an action element to the insight world. So we've all have in our arsenal of tools BI and dashboarding tools that really give you a good sense for the KPIs and metrics that you use to manage your business, tell you where you are. But I think where a lot of businesses struggle is needing to know where they should go, where they should take action, what they should change in their underlying business in order to make that business improve and be better. And so process mining as a foundational technology is really about adding that action element to that insight world. And so as I sort of walk through our view on process mining, what I thought I might do is take a little bit of a step back and ask the question, what's the underlying challenge or business problem that Celonis aims to address? And to do that, again, we step back a little bit and think about where we are as an industry and as business. And I think we've really entered a sort of new wave, a new age in the business world, this age of disruption. What I mean by that is all of us, all of your businesses are challenged with how they reinvent themselves to become the business of this next era of business. And this isn't just something that's focused on consumer software or internet services, but you really think about every industry is in a position of needing to rethink itself and rebuild itself. And so the example on the lower left is the GE jet engine aircraft, the GE engine. Even in the context of something which you would think of as being, incredibly industrial and all about manufacturing, really the jet engine is even thinking about how we think about propulsion as a service, right? So not thinking about just selling the engine, but thinking about the full supply chain of providing propulsion for an aircraft and rethinking that in the context of this new era. And why are we thinking so differently about business is because our customer is changing. So today, all businesses are selling to this new sort of millennial buyer. So the buyer in business is somebody who's using Google to do her searches, who's buying things on Amazon, who's streaming on Netflix, and who's ordering transportation using Uber. And these consumer services, they set a very different expectation in the mind of the consumer about what service means, what a product is. So, in the case of Netflix, when you wait a few seconds, for your movie to start streaming, that's frustrating. When in comparison, when we were ordering movies on Blockbuster, for those who remember that experience, we wouldn't think anything of going a few days to get a new movie from Blockbuster. Or on Amazon, when we order something and it shows up, next day every time, reliably, 100% reliable, we compare that to the old experience of having to order from a catalog and have that sort of long wait for items to show up. Or when the search results don't show up in the first page of your Google search results. I mean, how many times have you ever hit and go into the next set of Google search results? It just doesn't happen. So we're setting these very different expectations in the mind of consumers. At the same time, on the productivity side, on sort of the company side of that equation, everybody's struggling with creating productivity out of the resources we have. And we show here a statistic that productivity growth in developed economies is growing significantly slower than GDP. So we're not going to solve the challenge of productivity by simply adding more people, right? So we need to think about new ways to do business, new ways to do work that actually drive productivity. So in this sense, we create this dual challenge. We need to create this incredible next generation disruptive consumer-like experience, even in B2B, and yet we need to do it with less resources. We need to do it while we struggle with productivity. And the reason for this challenge is the operational friction in all of our businesses. So the root challenge here is the friction we've created inside our businesses. We have friction in our business because we've organized ourselves into silos. We don't actually work for a company. We work for the given department within that company, right? And our business is organized into a sales organization, to a customer service organization, to an accounting and a finance organization. And each of these groups, these teams, think about their process, think about the work that they do in the context of their sort of department, and not necessarily thinking about the interactions that those groups have across the enterprise. And we've also put in place systems behind each of these groups and these departments. So we have a sales automation system, we have an accounting system, an accounting package, we might have a manufacturing planning system. And there are points of friction between these systems. So work we do from a manufacturing perspective might have an impact on how we recognize revenue or how invoices are paid. So these points of friction in our business. And in fact, I'm sure everyone on this call, everyone on this webinar can sort of think about your own business and think about the points of friction that you have inside your business. And so this challenge of operational friction is a challenge not only for our customers. So when we create these high friction experiences, of course, when we don't deliver on time for the customer, or when we pay the invoice too late and miss the cash discount, these are poor experiences for our customers and our vendors, and that there's clear sort of cost to that. So we have missed referrals, we lose loyalty with our customers, et cetera. And that's what it makes intuitive sense. What makes less intuitive sense, but I think is equally important, is this sucks for employees as well. Nobody likes to be that person who has to go back and manually recode thousands of invoices into a new cost center, or nobody likes to be the person who has to run down to the production floor to expedite the order because we're going to miss the confirmed delivery date for this incredibly important customer. Nobody likes to be the person who has to call up from a customer service perspective and say we're going to miss that deadline. So these high friction experiences inside our enterprise clearly create a bad experience for customers, but equally create a bad experience for our employees and make work challenging, make it annoying. So if you look at how businesses are working to remove friction and transform themselves to become those next generation businesses they need to do it, they spend a lot of money on this. So we did a set of research with 2,000 individuals. And what was sort of, I think, sort of brilliant about this research is we asked the senior executives inside these organizations about their business transformation initiatives. And we asked the people who are actually doing the work, the practitioners. We asked both groups of people. So first of all, we found that they spend a lot of money on business transformation. And when you ask those senior leaders, 44% of them thought that the work that they're doing for business transformation had been a waste of time. It's sort of like that old adage in advertising, I know I wasted half my money on advertising, I wasn't sure which half. It seems that the same is true for business transformation. But, and I think also more challenging, if you look at the practitioners of business transformation inside those organizations, what they tell us is that business leaders don't look at their internal processes to establish the priorities that they have for their business transformation. So this is what we call classic top-down business transformation. We have an edict from on high about how we need to transform our business. And so in a way, this sort of points to where we see process mining and Celonis as being valuable, because our opportunity is to not transform the organization by sort of imposing a new will from above, but really thinking about a bottom-up approach to business transformation. So thinking about how we can align all of those different departments behind a common view of a business process and remove the points of friction between them. And so that we can actually take our business and turn our business into one which is thinking about how they deliver, not from the outside, from the inside out, but from the outside in, from the customer's perspective. So how we can actually link ourselves to that customer and put our operations and our customer at the heart of our operations. And when we do that, what we create is what we call the Superfluid Enterprise. And the Superfluid Enterprise is one that has automated self-evolving operations which respond to changes in our customers' demand and requirements, and whose processes therefore adapt and respond, and have complete transparency and visibility in terms of the work that we do on a day-to-day basis in order to link the work we do, the actions we take, and the effect that they have on our customer experiences. And where transformation is a bottom-up and organic experience and not a top-down and imposed experience. And if you think about the work that we do to create and to transform our businesses to become super fluid, in many cases, these are not things that are sort of new to us. So this is stuff that I'm sure everybody on this call is involved in some way in transforming and improving the process and operations inside your business. But the way we do that historically has not necessarily been overly successful. So we've done process modeling. So, whiteboards with Sharpies or whiteboards with Post-it notes where we sort of try to model out what is the underlying business process. We hire consultants, we pay them millions of dollars to help look at our operations, to do costing studies, et cetera. Or we deploy dashboards and define KPIs and sort of this idea that if we measure it, it will improve. So we're going to put up a big a dashboard in front of every user, and then hopefully they'll improve some critical KPI because they see it more frequently. And our view is that Celonis, with this process mining technology at the core, offers a software-based approach to solving the transformation challenge. So rather than relying on these manual and traditional techniques for getting insight into the process and therefore transforming it, doing that in a bottom-up approach, we can actually apply software to that challenge, get full visibility into the reality of the process inside our organization, surface those insights that we know we can take in order to improve them, and then actually monitor the resulting return that we have on the changes that we're making in that process. So how does it work from a technical perspective? At the core of the Celonis offering is a technology we call process mining. And so what process mining does is it looks at all of these operational systems that you have in your business. So every one of you has an ERP behind the scenes, Oracle or SAP or Dynamics. You have other systems like Salesforce or Ariba. You might have custom built systems like a customer service system. You have tens, hundreds, in some cases, thousands of different systems where users on a daily basis are doing the work of business. And when they do that work, they leave behind footprints or changes in the data in those operational systems. What we do with the process mining technologies, we take and we look at those underlying systems and we look at the log of changes that have occurred in that system. Or as I like to refer to it, we look at the flow of the data through that system. From that flow of data, we're able to actually visualize the underlying process in that system. So we can actually derive the business process that occurred by changes in the data in the operational system. We then marry that with a powerful analytic capability where we can actually model that process. We give you a way to visualize and explore it, but we tie it to a powerful analytical engine as well, where we can actually look at the impact that process has on your business. Now, from that model, we can actually interrogate as new data arrives in that operational system. We can use that model to make predictions about what the impact of that new piece of data will have on the business process. So for example, you could be looking at an order management process. You could model the order management process, and when a new order comes in, based on the attributes of that order, we can make a prediction about the ability, for example, to ship that order on time. And then we can actually give people actions they can take to improve the probability that that order delivers on time. And so that maps to what we think of as the 4 steps of transformation. So in any transformation initiative, we want to look at what improvement potential we have. That we need to understand the as-is situation, understand the root cause of the improvement potential, and we need to find the points in that process that we could improve. Where are the bottlenecks? Where are the points of rework? Where could we improve that process? Then we need to take those insights and we need to action them. So we need to give people a mechanism of taking the actions that we know will remove, for example, remove a bottleneck or eliminate rework or add automation. And then we want to measure and sustain that. We want to watch how those changes are actually having a demonstrable impact on our business. And that process is something we can actually automate in software. That's at the core of what we're doing with Celonis. So just from a practical perspective, how that manifests itself in the software, we deliver this through what we call the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud. At the core of the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud is this process mining technology. So that is something that is at the core of the software offering. And then we add a set of capabilities to discover the as-is process and monitor changes that occur in that process, again, by tying it to that powerful analytic capability. And then deploying enhancements to that process that allow you to actually improve the underlying, to improve the performance of that process that you found in our monitoring. Lastly, we've packaged these capabilities together into what we call the Intelligent Business App Store. So here you can actually have both connectivity to that underlying operational system and apps for improving those processes in an app store. So that means you can get started much faster because we've actually packaged those best practices into this app store. So again, built on process mining technology, discover the underlying process and monitor improvements to that process that you make with this enhanced step. So this is, of course, valuable across a range of incredibly important operational processes in your business, from your purchasing process to your selling process for lead to order, for order to cash, thinking about how we look at, for example, working capital, day sales outstanding, and the order to cash process, even in things like the product lifecycle management, product development process, thinking about how we can reduce, for example, time to market. If you think about internal service and customer service opportunities, So thinking about things like touchless tickets and manual work that we're doing on our customer service processes. And also even thinking about accounting processes, how we can improve the time it takes us to close our books. There's a range of different business processes inside our organization which would benefit from this approach. And it's incredibly valuable across a range of different business initiatives that you have. So from operational excellence initiatives to shared services implementations where we gather together processes and standardize them. We see this in terms of ERP migration for the things like S/4HANA, but also ERP consolidation, where we're bringing together these operational systems and harmonizing the processes. Or we see it in terms of automation. So as people look to deploy RPA or other automation techniques, identifying points where there are manual work and then using this technique to then find points of automation. So enough theory. Why don't we take a moment and take a look at how this technology actually works. So to do that, double check everything's working. Yep, all right, you can see my screen. I have launched us into the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud. And let's walk through a scenario for how this technology might work from a practical perspective. And to do that, I'm going to think about a use case around what we call order to cash, a very common scenario inside many organizations. And let's make this full screen. That's better. And so let's think a little bit about what the order to cash process would look like and how we might use the underlying process mining technology in the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud to make improvements in the order to cash process. So to do that, I'm going to start actually where any of you might start. If you were a new Celonis customer, you would start in our App Store. And what's powerful about this App Store is you can see very quickly all of the different source systems you can have access to. So we have pre-built connectivity to quite a wide range of different systems. Of course, you can build your connectivity to your own custom systems, or any system with an API, of course, is available to us. But you can see here, here's the sort of pre-built connectivity. Now, I happen to have access, since we're doing order to cash, I have access to an SAP system. It's actually running in our office in Germany. And you can see I can select SAP and have access to all of the different business processes that we can look at using SAP. And so if I look at the sales process, you can see order to cash is one of the business processes that we have access to right here in the Intelligent Business App Store. And this makes it incredibly fast for me to get started. So I can install this process. I can make a connection to this underlying SAP system. I will spare you the details of the connect string, et cetera. Answer a couple questions about dates and currencies. And now what the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud is doing is reaching out to that running SAP system. It knows that it's looking for the order to cash process. It knows exactly what tables to look at in SAP. It knows how to change and transform that data to understand those events that we talked about earlier from that process mining technology. And then literally in a few seconds, here we are, we're done. It's been able to get access to that data and have it available for me in the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud. And here you can see I can have a process overview of this order to cash process in but a few seconds. So in this order to cash process, we're looking at just under 1 million sales order items. And you can see right here the underlying order to cash process. So in this business, the way order to cash works is we receive the order, we confirm it, we generate a delivery document, we ship it, we send the invoice, and then the customer pays the invoice. And of course, everyone on the call should say, well, no, of course, that's an order to cash process. That's not that exciting. Except what is exciting about that is that I didn't tell it ahead of time that I was looking for an order to cash process. Or what steps that order to cash process would have. What the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud did is it used that process mining technology to look at the 1 million sales order items and derive what that process is. And what's powerful about that is that we actually therefore have access to not only the most common or expected case, which is this process here, but all of the variation in that process that's possible. And so, for example, you can see that this common path here represents about 41% of the orders. So 41% of the orders take the expected path, which means mathematically that the inverse of that is 58 or 59%, take some other process. And so what other process do they take? So we can look, for example, at the next most common variant in this process, and that variant is where we confirm the order and then we extend the confirmed delivery date. And extending the confirmed delivery date in layman's terms is lying, right? We told the customer it would take us a week to ship, and then it turns out it takes longer than a week. We need to call them up and tell them actually it's going to take longer. Maybe look at another variant here. The next most common variant after that is that we need to do a credit check. And so here you can see, for example, that we receive the order, but then we need to do a credit check before we can confirm that order. And this is actually a good opportunity to, let's look at this in a little more detail. If we look at this approved credit check step, and if we look at it not in terms of how often it occurs, but in terms of what it takes from a time perspective, you can see that in the case that we receive the order and we don't need to do a credit check, there's straight through processing. That happens right away. But when we do a credit check, it takes 3 days to do the credit check. And then inexplicably, having approved the credit check, it adds yet another day to the process before we can even confirm the order. And if we look at the automation rates, we might be able to start to see why. So we receive quite a few orders in an automated fashion, but only a little under 10% of the credit checks are done automated. And now you're starting to see how, by looking at the reality of the underlying process, we can start to find opportunities to improve that process. And of course, you can keep doing this. So we can add other variants. So you can see, for example, quality problems where we need to return the goods, the customer returns the goods, or where we send them an invoice, we need to remind them to pay. Turns out to be an important part of the order to cash process is getting paid. And you can start to really dig in and understand that underlying process that exists, in this case, the order to cash process. Now, with an understanding of that process, we now can tie that to a powerful analytic capability, and we can see the impact that changes on that process have on our business. So for example, let's take one of the ones we were looking at just a moment ago. We're going to look at cases in which we extend this confirmed delivery date. So here I have the process, and if I select extend confirmed delivery date, you can see that we can now select only orders in which we extend the confirmed delivery date, or only orders in which we lie to the customer and have to tell them it's going to take longer. You can see that occurs in right around 170,000 sales order items. But importantly, down here, you can start to see where that occurs. So which are the customers which have been most affected by cases in which we've needed to extend the confirmed delivery date? So Queen Industries, right? That's a case where we might want to call that customer up and apologize for continuously extending that confirmed delivery date. And we might also look, for example, at, is there a particular plant which is driving this? So are we having stock outs at a plant, or we're low on raw materials, or it's the production line is not working well, and that's causing us to have to extend that confirmed delivery date. Again, the important idea here is that there are many cases in which we can quickly understand the root cause of the challenge or the problem we have in this underlying process. And as we surface those insights, like it's a particular plant or it's a particular step in the process, maybe it's these credit checks, as we surface those insights, we need to be able to take action on them. And that's exactly where we turn to a capability in the Intelligent Business Cloud we call the Action Engine. And the Action Engine, in a way, you can think of that as running those analyses I just showed you on a continuous basis on new data as it comes into the system. And when we do that, and we look at the model of the process against that new piece of data, we surface an insight. We don't surface it to an analyst. We actually surface it, in this case, with the order to cash process, we surface it to an order clerk who can actually take action on it. So for example, you can see here is a list of actions that I, as an order management clerk, can take to improve the order to cash process here at this company. And the first example on the list is one that should be familiar if you've looked at the analysis. You can see here that we have a new order that's come in, order 450-957, and it has a relatively low probability of being delivered on time. And the reason for that is a pending credit check. And so you'll remember from the analysis step, when we take that credit check step, that takes quite some time. And we're not going to deliver this order on time if we need to do this credit check. So maybe this customer has exceeded a threshold in terms of their order, and we need to update their credit check. So the Action Engine has seen this change in the data. They've looked at this new piece of data that came in, this new order. They've run it against the model, and they're, in a sense, sort of warning us to take action. And again, what's powerful about that is I can take action right here. So I could assign it to somebody on the team. I could take it myself, and I can actually go in there and approve that credit check myself. So I can go, in this case, drop into SAP and actually pre-filled with the right sales order ID, et cetera, and actually go ahead and approve that credit check or do the credit check right here. So right here in a single place, I can both get the insight delivered to me, but to the person who can actually take action, and I can take action. I can work as a team to, in this case, expedite the order. You can see that we can deliver these insights not only to actual human beings like Lily, but to bots themselves. So this can be a really powerful way of triggering an automation where, for example, removing an unnecessary order block where that's interfering with our on-time delivery, et cetera. So you can see there are quite a few actions that I can take here to improve this underlying process. And as we do that, in this case, the order to cash process will improve. And we can track that improvement in the transformation center. So if we look at all of the objectives we have as an organization, from compliance and productivity, you can see that this is a central place to sort of track all the KPIs that matter to us. And here we can see optimizing delivery, reliability, and performance is a key priority. And here you can see in the order to cash process, this on-time delivery rate is a key KPI that we're managing. And you can see that we can track it over time. We can see exactly who's been working on it and what actions they've taken to improve that process. This is a collaborative tool for us to manage the transformation. And again, in that bottom-up way, where we're looking at exactly who's doing work, in this case, to transform our order to cash process, improve our on-time delivery, and then derive the benefits from a customer service and cash delivery perspective in terms of improving our on-time delivery. So with that, let me flip back and just wrap up here. So what we just showed you here is the value of this bottom-up approach to business transformation, where we can use this process mining technology to not only see where we are from a process perspective, but remove operational friction in our business and improve the business outcome and actually create transformation. And that has impact across all of the important metrics that we have as a business, from an efficiency perspective, from a speed perspective, from a quality and compliance perspective. We can look at the key KPIs that matter in our business, and we can make measurable improvements in those. And that can bring down our cost structure. It can help us drive new revenue opportunities. It can improve our working capital utilization and help improve risk management. And we've done this many times with many, many different customers and across a range of different business processes. From the work that Siemens has done in the order to cash process, where just one example, they were able to remove tens of millions of manual activities and save millions of dollars on an annual basis across their all the plants that they have globally. So work we've done with organizations like Innogy, which is a utility, which is where customer onboarding is an incredibly complicated, time-consuming, and challenging process. They will to remove significant manual work and bring that process down by over 5 days, which is a huge savings for them. Or Schlumberger, which is looking at ERP consolidation, rationalizing business processes across all of their ERPs as they move across, I think it's down from 20 ERP systems to one across 20,000 users. Or what Vodafone has done in completely transforming their P2P process using a shared services model, where they consolidated across all the range of businesses and geographies to a consolidated shared services purchasing process, where they improved their what they call the perfect PO, which is a PO which requires no manual intervention, and drove up touchless invoices, so where the invoice comes in from the supplier and they can process it automatically without human intervention, which improved their error rate by over 92%. Or Chart, which is looking again at a shared services implementation to improve the way they drive working capital and free working capital in that business by paying correctly and on time, not too early and not too late, capturing cash discounts, et cetera, and driving significant changes and improvements in their working capital. We've done this across a range of different industries with the leading businesses around the world that are using the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud and this underlying technology to improve their business. So with that, let me turn to some questions. And if you have any questions, just throw them into the Q&A panel. And I'm happy to start addressing those. Also use it as an opportunity to take a drink. So again, the Q&A panel should be available to you on the sort of little panel that comes up as part of GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, I guess. And go ahead and if you have a question, toss it in there. So first question that came up here, and I won't embarrass anyone by saying reading where you're from, etc. But someone's asking about the implementation process and how we can. So it's sort of a great technology, but how does it work from a practical perspective in terms of implementation time? So I would say a couple things here. So first of all, as I mentioned in the presentation, we have what we call the Intelligent Business App Store, where we've gathered together a lot of these best practices into packaged applications that are available on that app store. And so getting started can be, in many cases, as simple as grabbing a business process from the app store and an application that solves an important challenge you have, and then installing those and moving forward. What we often will do with prospects and customers is what we call a proof of value. And so what we do is we'll work with you to first do some discovery. What are some of the business challenges? Where is your what business transformation initiative do you have? And then we actually work collaboratively with your data in the Intelligent Business Cloud to be able to take a first pass, look at what is that underlying business process, and what are a couple of key initiatives you could take to improve that process. So what are some of the KPIs that matter? And what's the sort of low-hanging fruit for improving that process? And we do that collaboratively with you. We do it over the course of a week, so 5 days, 5 working days. And I would say most of the customers that we work with today have done one or more of these proof of value exercises. And then as we work together, as we move that proof of value into production, which typically we can do reasonably quickly, we have a services capability ourselves, and we have a range of different partners from around the world that worked with us in the past to be able to take that proof of value and have that work in a production case. So obviously in a production case, you want to have a live connection to the underlying system. You want that to be refreshed on a frequent basis. And then you also need to enable and empower all the workers and people in that process so they can both get the insights and then also have the correct action engine skills so that we can surface the actions they can take to improve that process. And again, we have an implementation methodology for making that happen. Okay, so with that, I think that was the first and only question, so that's great. I appreciate everybody's time and wish you a wonderful rest of the day, and we will look forward to following up with you later. And again, we have recorded this and we'll make the recording available to you afterwards. So thank you.